Hey, it's Dan again, and welcome back to Unified Gaming. Now, if you enjoyed the video, then like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to stay up to date. Now, in this video, I'm going to quickly just go through kind of the changes that you need to be aware of for PvP, so that way you are kind of ahead of the curve and can make builds yourself, or just kind of know what's going to be happening with this patch. If you haven't checked out my full review already, do check it out. We'll give you kind of some ideas of what's changed. In all honesty, this is one of the bigger changes that's hit sort of PTS in sort of the past 3 or 4 patches, in all honesty. So this is kind of a patch that's definitely worth checking out. As I said, look at the previous video. If you don't have time for that, the basic summary is that dots are now way more effective than they used to be, AoEs are way more effective than they used to be, and everything's just standardized on the whole. So there's a lot more balance. I'm going to focus obviously on kind of the changes in the 5.1.2 and then sort of outline what I'm going to be doing in the PTS circle this week, so you kind of get an idea of what things I'm testing and so on. So with that said, let's jump straight in. As for the combat and gameplay, so we've skipped all the bits that aren't relevant. The Dragonite has been buffed once more, so yay. The Stam Dragon was nerfed though. So basically corrosive armor, before the penetration that was given, allowed it to work on dots and everything like that. Dots, poisons, glyphs, everything. Now it only works on direct damage abilities, so like your whip, your Searing Strike, and so on. So it just means that dots are no longer being buffed by this, and sort of secondary effects. So slight nerf will lower damage somewhat, but it won't be too drastic in all honesty. As for Ardent Flame, Searing Strike got buffed again. So I've seen loads of Dragonites recently in the PTS that are just doing ridiculous damage with this ability. So if you are a vampire and you fight a Dragonite, you are going to die pretty fast now. There's just, the damage is way too high. So this is just another buff that's basically increased the duration, increased the damage dealt. So, you know, just overall they've had like 137% damage increase on Searing Strike on the passive and stuff. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, lots of damage coming from Magicka Dragonites this patch, so look out for that. As for Nightblades, they've just updated Drain Power, so that way it now just gives you a bit more healing, and the reduction that was given kind of has been sort of fixed. There was a bug with it, so that's just been fixed somewhat. So all in all, you can have slightly more healing, you're going to get more bang for your buck out of this than you used to. But obviously this is focused on being a heal ability rather than a pure damage ability, so do factor that in. It will just do AoE damage anyway, but the heal will be toned down because it's an AoE heal. Sorcerers obviously had a nice buff. Obviously their shields have been buffed, so lots of you are going to see going, oh no, it's all shield buffs, and it's obviously all OP and they're ridiculous. Last PTS increment, they obviously nerfed the shields heavily, so they pretty much doubled the cost of Hardened Ward and Empowered Ward, and they also reduced the size of the shield by 18% overall, so massive nerf. So basically the shield's smaller than it used to be and it costs more. This patch they've basically just said, look, the shield's still going to cost loads than it did, and the shield's still going to be smaller on the overall tooltip by 18%, but you can have more of that shield. So basically if you have a high max magic pool and a decent health pool, you'll probably have a shield that's very similar to live now, but it's going to cost more magicka. So all in all, it's going to be harder to sustain kind of the current sort of meta that people see with their shield spam, because obviously this is more expensive as is harness magicka, because of the cost reductions nowhere near as good as it used to be. So Salt's kind of got a bit of their shield strength back, which is needed in all honesty because they were just melting way too fast. But as I said, you need to have a really high max magicka pool now to take advantage of this 60% cap. If you don't have a high max magicka pool and you don't have a decent health pool, you're then going to be probably using Empowered Ward, which is again more sustained, which Salts do have issues with anyway. So overall, this is a good change. They've obviously done the same thing for light armor shields too, okay? The Wardens obviously had a slight buff as well, so the heal from Arctic Winds now gives you a big heal, so rather than being 15%, it's now 25%, which is great. And it also has the heal over time still, but they've been toned down a little bit, so 3% even max health from 5, so you basically have a larger burst heal from it, but smaller heal over time. That said, this is now more useful for damage dealers rather than tanks. So tanks will obviously like this, but for damage dealers, this now makes it more useful, because you lack a stun on a ward, and this obviously helps solve that issue. That said, I'm still going to imagine people are going to use Clench in all honesty, so use Flame Clench, because obviously as a warden your shulks are kind of 16 meter range. Obviously Clench is 15 meters, so you're pretty much in that range anyway. So this won't really get much use in all honesty. Some people might use it in niche builds, but it's not particularly great. Healing Seed, they've changed obviously this, so basically when you now use it, it gives you a heal over time. So instead of it just being a massive you wait and you wait and you get a big burst heal, it's now give you a big heal over time for everybody in the circle. So it means that you either get rather it being no heal or big heal, it's now heal throughout, and if you leave, you still would have got some of the healing from it. So it just makes it more viable and more useful, very similar to ground healing. 2H, they've obviously changed Dizzy and Swing. They basically just reverted a change. So before, in the last increment, they made it so that as it ranked up, the stun increased. They realised that caused issues with animations, so they've just swapped it back around now, so that as it ranks up, it would now do more damage. As for momentum, they tried giving it major evasion. They realised that was too strong, so they've changed it to minor endurance. So obviously if you're using rally or forward momentum, obviously you get some more stam sustain, which is always nice, but all in all it's not particularly helpful. That's actually enough. Onslaught, as I mentioned with corrosive armor, they've basically done exactly the same treatment here. So the physical spell pen is now removed for like dots, and it only applies to direct damage or channels like flurry or like the Templar jabs, for example. Okay, and they've also reduced the duration as well, so it's no longer 16 seconds. It's obviously they've reduced it by about 20, about 15-20%. So that's not so bad. As for restoration staff and ground healing, they basically just increased the heal of this morph to illustrious healing. So this way it's now 50% stronger than it used to be. So you either get really high heals or you get decent heals but sustain back, which allows you to put out more sort of smaller heals over time. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see more people use this in PvP where burst heals are more impactful, but whereas obviously the sustain one's probably more for PvE. So kind of it just distinguishes those skills a bit clearer. Flame Clench, they did the same treatment with Dizzy and Swing. So before, when you used it, it worked and kind of did what it needed to do, but then they changed the animation because they tried to increase the stun. It didn't work, so now I've just given the stun a flat 3 seconds and basically made it so it gives it more damage as it levels up. So basically more damage, basically in longer stun, which is good. Obviously factor in that this is only on Clench, and obviously if you use Reach, Reach will obviously not give you the stun anymore. So that's, if you're not aware of that, that's obviously a big nerf to most magic specs. And also lightning staffs didn't obviously give you the clench either. So if you use the lightning clench, or shock clench it's called, it doesn't give you a stun anymore. So it's just an AoE burst or AoE ball of lightning. So it's kind of not particularly great for stunning. Obviously it's good on a magical warden if you use this with shulks and a master staff, because your clench hits for like 10k basically on tooltip, and it's like 1,600 to use, so it's really cheap to cast. You can spam it with shulks, you just got 2 massive AoE damage. So that's obviously a thing next patch. Light armor, obviously shield, as I said, same empowered ward and conjured ward. They've just increased the flat shield by 10% for the max elf. So the shield isn't 10% larger, you just can have more of it if you have obviously a good max magic pool and a good health pool. So that's that basically. So this is obviously going to need people to obviously change their glyphs somewhat, in all honesty, or their attributes to kind of really capitalize on the shield size. So you'll see more people need to calculate this now rather than just having obviously just big shields to begin with. Undaunted, they've changed the necrotic orb and energy orb, so the morph energy orb has been changed. They've just increased the healing, which is great, and they've also just fixed an issue with the synergies, so that way the synergy kind of doesn't really remove their skill itself, so it keeps doing what it's doing. So you can proc one ball rather than all of them disappear, and it only gets rid of one, so something. Fixed the issue with Bloody Mara, so that's been fixed. They've obviously increased the bash glyph effectiveness, so that's a bit better. Night Flame's been nerfed overall, so smaller heals, longer cooldown. Can't crit, well, it shouldn't crit anyway, but it can't crit now. But it does have a higher proc chance, so although it's going to have obviously more chance to proc, it's going to be up for less time, and it's going to have smaller heals. Obviously the Sentinel set, obviously that's been nerfed as well, so getting less stam from it, less healing from it. And 7th Legion, they've just had a bug fix, where when you cast an armor ability now, it will proc it, whereas before if you swap bars and stuff, it would kind of proc it, it wouldn't proc it, it was a bit inconsistent in all honesty. And then Thunderous Folly, this is a nice change for PvE, so obviously when you cast obviously the skill on your back bar and you switch to your front bar with the Maelstrom Bow, it used to obviously have issues where you'd have to wait for the animation to actually start before you could swap. Now you can swap straight away, so that's good. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for this patch. I said there's nothing too massive in all honesty. Nothing kind of that's like, oh, that's really glaringly OP or glaringly unbalanced. On the whole, I'm pretty excited for the patch overall. I still don't like the changes with obviously the ultimate cast times. I think that's a bit iffy on like Dawnbreaker and Onslaught, because there's other ways to balance them. They need to reduce the damage done on Dawnbreaker and either have it as a high dot or high burst. You can't have it at both. But instead they've added a cast time, which just makes it really clunky to use in PvP currently, and they need to change that personally. But all in all, it's a pretty good patch in all honesty, come to the Elder Scrolls Online. So if you haven't jumped into the game yet, consider doing so. Really good game. Loads have changed since obviously it first got released. So highly recommend getting back into it. And with that said, I'm going to jump off now and jump into PTS myself actually. And I'm going to be testing some different specs. So if you have an idea or you'd like to have something tested specifically, going, oh, could you test a Magic Dragonite or a Stam Dragon, or could you test and could you make a really good control build, something that locks people down? And I'll obviously do my best to obviously create what I can. So with that said, I'm going to obviously shoot off now and I'll catch you in the next video, guys. So thanks for watching and take care. Bye.